Joining us now is New York-based attorney, real estate developer, and prominent Israel advocate Mark Langfan. Shalom, thank you for joining us. So Prime Minister Netanyahu stated that the collapse of the Assad regime presents both great opportunities and significant dangers. Can you, Mark, explain what opportunities and dangers the Prime Minister is referring to?
Well, the primary opportunity is perhaps the death of the Iranian colonial project that was really an outgrowth of a much earlier Persian a Shiite regime called the Safavids, who were in the 1400s, where they basically used the Shia religion to colonize huge parts of the Middle East. And the Iranians were attempting to do exactly that, meaning use the banner of religion to in fact enslave huge swatches of the Middle East, because that's unfortunately the Safavid playbook. And so they were trying to copy the Safavid playbook and use the flag of this Shia faith to actually enslave people, which is the exact opposite of religion, of what I think religion should be. So what they were doing was they were creating a connected landmass, meaning you have Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. And through that, they were attempting to create this hegemonic rule over the Sunnis and to, in fact, convert the Sunnis into Shia. And so what this has, in fact, done is break a contiguous land border from Iran to Hezbollah in Lebanon, where there's no longer a land connection. And therefore, what will likely happen is it might very well put the Hezbollah yoke of Lebanon in play, which fortuitously began with the attack, the October 7th attack, where Hezbollah came into the war and Israel pretty much decimated a huge part of Hezbollah, which in fact allowed this resurgence of the Sunni forces to sweep through Syria like a broom. Now, on the flip side, so the huge gain is what appears to be a fatal blow to the Iranian hegemonic project in the Middle East, which is incalculable how important that is to Israel and to the world and to the Arab world. This was not an Arab-Israel-Muslim conflict. This was a Shia attempt to hijack the Sunnis under the cloak of being anti-Israel. So this has been now exposed as a total fraud on the Arab Sunni as well as Arab Shia forces in the Middle East, because where are the Iranians? The Iranians are nowhere. You know why? Because they were fighting to the last drop of Arab blood to take over Israel. They weren't sacrificing Iranian blood. They were fighting to the last drop of Arab blood, including Palestinian blood, for what they were claiming was a false reason, but was really their reason to colonialize and control all these forces.
So that's the opportunity, breaking the axis of Iran, Syria, and Lebanon. But what are the dangers associated with the collapse of the Assad regime?
The dangers involved are really twofold. First, the very notion of these forces is what is exactly constituting these forces? Is it the hardcore ISIS theology that was putting people in cages and burning them and drowning them and just wreaking havoc on Syria maybe 6 years ago? Or is it a more moderate, sort of a kinder and gentler Islamic force? We don't really know yet. So it's very early to tell whether they're going to become a terrorist state or they're going to become sort of a moderistic Islamic state that is going to not harm the Christians in Syria, not attack the Kurds in the northeast of Syria, and sort of have a modus vivendi with its neighbors, including Jordan. That's the one risk. We don't really know where they're vectoring. But what we do know is Iran was a terrorist state and was a terroristic hegemonic project. So, you know, we've killed one hegemonic project that was a terroristic state. The jury's out on this one, okay? But then there's the second aspect, which is the Turkish aspect. We don't really know yet to what extent Turkey, as an Ottoman revanchistic power, where their fingers are in the pie here in terms of what strings they are pulling and how much of a control and a command and control Turkey has over these forces. Because what could very well have happened is you're switching one evil hegemon, Iran, for possibly another evil hegemon, which is Turkey. And the big picture here is the Arabs don't want to be ruled by an Iranian hegemon, and they don't want to be ruled by a Turkish hegemon. In fact, what happened after World War I is World War I freed the Middle East from the Turkish hegemon, because Turkey, almost inexplicably in World War I, sided with Germany. And so Great Britain, that's the Lawrence of Arabia. So really all of these Arab states were really formed post World War I, where the British Mandate took over all of this area from Turkey in World War I, as well as there was some areas that France took over, meaning Lebanon and Syria, of course. So now you have, we don't know what is going to be the tectonic undershift of these forces, and how they rule over Syria is one issue. What those forces owe and how they're controlled by Turkey is another issue. But how does Israel play in all this? Actually, Israel turns out to be the protector against all these hegemons. And that's really the most amazing thing here, is that Israel all of a sudden becomes the protector of Jordan, and of Jordan, of Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. Because the way you get to Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states is you go through Jordan. So what in effect happened here is you really have the kernel of a Sunni, in my view, if the Arabs want to think straight and they don't want to have their anti-Semitic craziness go on, they really all of it, and you have to, what's the bigger backdrop? You have Trump coming in saying he doesn't really want to get involved with all these wars. He doesn't want to, okay? So guess what? If he's not getting involved in all of these wars and he's not really going to be sending troops to protect Jordan or whatever else, which he won't be, okay? Who's protecting Jordan? Guess what? The 900-pound gorilla that anyone and everyone actually can rely on, not to steal from you and kill you, which is Israel. So it really turns out that Israel is going to be, in effect, the de facto protector of Jordan, and via Jordan, Saudi Arabia. In very much like, and this is the crazy thing. I used to go around and talk to people and show them this map that's on my website that you can post with this thing. And basically, I had 3 steps to explain how Israel was the stabilizing force in the Middle East rather than the destabilizing force. So what's my argument? My argument is simple. I say, okay, you're telling me Israel's the destabilizing force. All right. Which Israel are we talking about? Are we talking about 67 Israel? Post-67? Oh, definitely not post-67. But pre-67 Israel? Oh yeah, pre-67 Israel was still destabilizing. Okay, well then how about the partition is, oh, that partition Israel is still destabilizing. So you really mean no Israel? Oh yeah, that's what we mean. So I say, okay, and that's what those people are really saying. All the people who ever say Israel is the destabilizing force in the Middle East, you say, well, talk to me. Which Israel, what size Israel are you talking about? Post 67, pre-67, 1948, 2000, 1919, 800, 1850, which Israel? Talk to me, which Israel? Okay. And they're saying, oh yeah, we don't want any Israel. So it really burrows down to what the real issue is. The people who say that, even as Jews, they don't even realize what they're saying when they say it, because when Jews say it, they only think that it's post-67 Israel. But that's not what the non-Jews and Muslims are saying. They're saying, no Israel is going to be stabilizing. So I say, okay. So I take this little map, and I say, well, let's say you just pull Israel out. You take all the 6 million Jews and you bring them wherever, whoever, whatever. What's going to happen? I say, you're never going to have a Palestinian state. There never was a Palestinian state. There never will be a Palestinian state. I said, the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a bigger Hezbollah / Syria, or a bigger Egypt. Now, if God forbid there was something that happened to Israel, not only would you have Hezbollah going after Israel, you'd have this new Syrian, whatever it is, and then Egypt. So they'd all fight for the spoils. I've been doing this 30 years. Not once has anyone said, oh, that's not right. They always say, of course that's what's going to happen. Then I showed them this second pane. And I said, okay. I say, do you know Israel has been protecting Jordan from Syria since 1970? And they say, you're kidding me. I say, no. What happened was you had Black September in Jordan, sorry. And Syria, at that time, Hafez al-Assad, the father of the one that just got booted, lined up a whole bunch of tanks on the Jordan-Syrian border and was about to invade. And Israel said, no, you take a foot over the border into Jordan, we will annihilate you. So he said, I'm not going to invade Jordan. That's not such a good idea. So ever since then, in effect, Jordan has been a protectorate of Israel from the north, whether from Hezbollah or Syria or whatever combination. And that's all I ever needed. Why? Because after these two steps, guess what? Saudi Arabia has 3 new northern neighbors. Now 4 new neighbors. They have Egypt, which does not have a land contiguous border with Saudi Arabia. That is the poorest Sunni country and the most populous Sunni country, and has the biggest military in the world, and controls the Suez Canal, a small thing. Hezbollah, this new Islamic whatever you're talking about from Syria, and guess what? Iran, via Iraq. Period. Are you starting to see stability out of these 3 steps? The answer is no. So where did we go wrong? We went wrong on our original assumption, which was that Israel is the cause of instability. All of a sudden, Israel is the cause of stability. And critically, with President Trump's overall approach to lightening the footprint of the Middle East, what is going to happen is Israel's critical aircraft carrier value is going to multiply orders of magnitude in terms of its durability, its connectedness with all of the critical areas, as well as the stability that nobody else can tell you the next day what and who is going to rule which country, except in Israel.
Now, these forces have declared their intention to establish a democratic government, assuming fair elections were held in Syria. That might seem like science fiction. Aren't most Syrians Sunni Muslims?
Yes.
Now, what would be the implications of a Sunni-controlled government in Syria for Israel?
The key is that what Israel needs is democracy. In these Arab countries, where there is a democracy that values Israel's input into the region, what Israel can deliver for those people. And the primary issue is, what can Israel deliver to those people? Israel can deliver to those people a peaceful sphere where they don't have to worry about Hezbollah, because Israel can protect the new Syria from Hezbollah, just like Israel protected and protects Jordan from the hegemon of the old Assad and the new Iran. So Israel can actually afford security where they don't have to pay for it. And they can look at Israel as a force that is a benign force that is not going to insert itself as these other forces do to create havoc and bedlam and mayhem. Because what is the thesis of Iran? The thesis of Iran is what Iran did was they sort of copied the Arab leaders' theory of sort of 1948 to 2000. What was the Arab leaders' theory? Well, the reason why I'm a dictator and you are dictated to is because we're in a war against this terrible Israel. And so we have to be on a war footing, and that's why I'm the dictator and you're the dictated too. Okay. Iran took that idea and ran with it. And they said, oh, I'm going to rule you and I'm going to put you into all of this commotion and everything because there's this terrible bad Israel there that we have to destroy for all of these crazy reasons that don't go and try to explain them, but just there are reasons there. Okay. So Saudi Arabia and these other countries through the Abraham Accords have come to some type of modus vivendi and modus operandi in terms of recognizing that maybe Israel isn't so bad. You know, maybe having our western borders secure at no cost to us, because Israel is not attacking Saudi Arabia. You know, Israel isn't attacking Jordan. Okay, you know, there's nothing going on there. Maybe that's a good thing. Instead of having Egypt on my northern border, I have Israel on my northern border. Okay, maybe that's not so bad. So hopefully this will be a potentially Islamic, but there's a difference between Islamic and Islamist opportunity to enhance the Abraham Accords and potentially widen the basis of mutual non-violence.
We remember all the attempts of the left to reach peace agreements with Syria in exchange for territory, the Golan Heights. Now that Israel has secured the Syrian side of Mount Hermon overlooking Damascus, you suggest that the chances of reaching some form of agreement with Syria are better than ever. What were the flaws in the approach of the left in terms of conceding territory in exchange for peace?
Their approach was delusional. It had nothing to do with the real world. What it had to do with was their megalomaniac, it's almost a narcissistic megalomania that they are the Messiah. They are going to bring peace. Okay? And all they were doing was surrendering. And everyone knew all they were doing was surrendering. They were talking this way as it's the peace of the brave, it's this. They were surrendering. That's the only thing that they were doing. And it, in fact, was a bigger fraud. Not only were they narcissists, not only were they megalomaniacs, not only were they messianics, okay, they were frauds. And how were they frauds? Because what happened was, and I was involved in this in very, very close detail, when Ehud Barak and Shimon Peres were agreeing to give up the Golan Heights, there was one little proviso, one little small proviso. Oh, we want to put US troops on the Golan Heights as protectors of us. And they had sort of a very first order simplistic argument. Oh, look at Egypt. You have the American peacekeepers in Egypt, and they're, you know, no problem. They're in Egypt, and they're between Egypt and Israel, and they're no problem. But there was only one small problem. The Sinai Peninsula is not the Golan Heights. There were many, many, many differences about, principally, the Golan Heights, and you have Hezbollah still firing Katyusha rockets at Israel. So what happens is, if you saw the topography of northern Israel, there's only two ways you can go into Lebanon. There's the coastal plain and there's the Hula Valley. And the Hula Valley is right at the foothills of the Golan Heights. So they were giving up the Golan Heights right abutting the Hula Valley. So I had a very simple argument. I said, the only reason why Ariel Sharon was successful in his invasion of Lebanon was because he went up both the coast and he went up the Hula Valley. And he, in fact, created a pincer movement where the defenders of Hezbollah and you know, the Palestinians and all of those terrorists there, they didn't know if they were going to be captured by one arm of the advance or the other arm. So they had to retreat in a very spasmodic, uncoordinated way. But if you give up the Golan and you have US troops on the foothills of the Golan, Israel can't go up the Hula Valley anymore. So a demand of America to Israel was, okay, you want us to put US troops on the Golan Heights? No problem. You have to agree with America that you're never going to use the Hula Valley to attack Lebanon. And they said, ooh. The Israeli generals said, oh, we can't do that. They said, wait a second. If you're going to use the Hula Valley to attack Lebanon, you're not putting us right in the shooting match there as peacekeepers. We're going to be in the middle of a firefight. So thank goodness America decided not to put US troops in the Golan Heights, and therefore the whole fraud of giving back the Golan Heights was nixed.
Mark Langfan, thank you for sharing your insights and perspective on the recent developments and their implications for Israel. Shalom.
Thank you for having me.